It's time to down tools for a bit. Welcome to the ToolShed, the influential podcast for anyone and everyone involved in the building industry. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey there, before we kick off, I want to share a really important thought. 71% of you who watch this channel frequently don't subscribe. So if you've enjoyed any video you've ever watched, can you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps the channel more than you think, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. So let's go. Hey folks, welcome to the ToolShed Podcast, yet another episode. Just before we fire into it, just want to remind you, if you haven't done the Builders Freedom Readiness Scorecard, it's the link is in the description. And why we have put that together, it's just been incredible the amount of builders that I have spoken to over the journey, where the purpose of them starting their business in the first place kind of gets lost. They did it to be able to be a little bit more of a master of their own destiny, have more freedom of choice, and it tends not to happen with the standard garden variety way that builders go about building their business. So we put together a very simple quiz. It'll take about 2 minutes to go through it. And once you've gone through it, it will give you a score in the three critical areas that we've found that are really important to give you more time and financial freedom, and therefore more freedom of choice as well. And not only that, it gives you the score, but it'll also give you some suggestions of what you could begin to work on to start to turn that around. So it's a really great investment of a couple of minutes. So jump in, hit the link and do it. Okay. In this episode, I'm talking to Mr. Troy Ross. There he is. And we're going to be talking about the Alchemy of Men. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but what I'd like to do to get started, Troy, firstly, welcome you to the podcast, but find out a bit about your story, a bit about your background, and how the hell did we end up here talking on a podcast? What's the story?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share my story. I really do appreciate it. It's been one hell of a battle for myself. Most men out there, have gone through some day-to-day trauma, the stresses of work, family life, the stresses of pressures financially, emotionally, mentally. I actually found myself 2 years ago at a point where we could call rock bottom, where I pretty much found no purpose in life. Had no motivation to, get out of bed. Had no purpose. Didn't know kind of where I was going, what I was doing. Got stuck in the daily grind of life. Needed a way out. Best way to describe it was, I lost control of my own life, and I felt like I was a bit of a passenger. Had a few health issues, had a serious relationship breakdown, and as a result also kind of lost myself in the way. I found myself actually one day looking in the mirror and kind of asking myself, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? And I couldn't answer it. I knew I needed a bit of help, but I just didn't know what kind of help I needed, and I was a bit too afraid to ask. Me being stubborn, me being a man, the perception is it's a bit weak to speak and a bit weak to ask for help. But I got to a point where I had no other choice. I needed to do something, because at the end of the day, it was a bit of doom and gloom. Found myself actually researching online, help for men, mental health, all that sort of stuff. Actually came across the Alchemy of Men website and had a quick squiz as to what it was and what it can do to help. And I very quickly actually closed it and said, no, that's not for me. But I came back to it. Because it was just me being stubborn and me being, I guess, closed off to wanting to help myself. I ummed and ahed about it for a couple of days, and do I, don't I? I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a limb here. I actually called the owner and facilitator of the Alchemy of Men, Geraldine, and had a quick chat to her. I found myself pretty comfortable at the start of the phone call, and I just opened up and said to her, I didn't know if this was for me. I didn't know if it was the right course. I didn't know if it was going to help. Very quickly, Geraldine asked for a few questions. Uh, do you suffer from a bit of depression, a bit of anxiety? I told her a bit about my story. And one of the questions that I asked her was, do you think I'll benefit from this? And do you think it's for me? Her response was, that's up to you to decide. But what else have you got to do? What else have you got to lose? And as soon as I got off the phone to her, I booked my ticket, and I booked my flights to Cairns. Um, and off I went. Now, it's something I've never been on before. I've never ever spoken openly about my feelings or anything like that, because to me it was always a bit weak to speak. It was, the general consensus is, take a bit of concrete and harden up. Um, Now I got up to Cairns, and again, I actually never been to Cairns before, so again, it was all new. And one of the biggest things, I guess, for me was just the fear. Yes, the fear of the unknown. I had no idea where I was going, what I was about to embark on, who I was going to see. I stayed in Cairns on the Friday night by myself, um, and I met up with two locals who were actually heading up to the retreat themselves, and we carpooled up. Now, I'd never met these guys before. We spent a good hour and a half in the car heading up to the retreat. By the time we got up there, we had actually almost built a mateship, because what we quickly found was actually we had a lot of similarities in terms of the reason why we were going and what we were trying to achieve. I remember actually getting to the retreat, and it was in the middle of nowhere. Again, I had no idea where I was, no idea what to expect. And very quickly, as I met Geraldine, she made us feel so welcome, and all of the nerves and the anxiousness and stuff was soon relieved. And I remember kind of telling myself, biggest advice that I would give as well to any men out there is, if you are choosing to embark on something like this, expect the unexpected. And if you go in with an open mind and apply yourself to it, you'll actually achieve more. And that's exactly the advice that I took and I did myself. Um, I remember sitting in the room with 10 other like minded people. And one of the biggest things that I was scared of was, do I have to share my story? How am I going to do this? Because I struggle to talk one on one, never alone in a group full of men. Uh, Very quickly, that was answered, and very quickly, we were assured that we're not here to storytell. We're here to work on a subconscious level. And within the first sort of half hour to an hour, I actually found myself, with 10 like-minded people sharing the same daily struggles of life. And by the end of the weekend, the tools and the skills that we actually gained from the facilitators, and Geraldine in particular, I left there feeling so empowered. But from meeting 10 strangers at the start of the retreat to then at the end of the retreat, became mates, became like a brothership. It became people that we now lean on, we talk to on a day to day, we help each other. Um, what I found really surprising out of the retreat was actually we spoke a lot about our struggles together as a whole. And I remember sitting in the room, reflecting on some of the questions that were being asked, and was going, yeah, that's how I feel, or yeah, that's what I think, and it was so amazing to see that people were going through what I was going through, and I wasn't alone, and that in itself was so empowering, because if I'm here with 10 other guys, how many more men are out there feeling the same? So my advice is, take the leap. It isn't weak to speak. I've gone actually to the retreat twice now, and I'm looking to embark again at the end of the year. Um, from what I've learned at the start of my first retreat to where I am now, I've turned my life around. I came back as a changed man. I continued to work one on one with Geraldine and the facilitators on a bit of personal level, but I have been able to find purpose in life. I found my direction. I found my my inner peace, and I know who I am as a person. I respect who I am as a person again, and for that, I've become a better partner, a better friend, a better dad, better person, and I've been able to apply myself so much more in relationships, in the workforce, just in the day to day life. I've now got skills and tools to help me when I am triggered or when I do feel down. I've actually had multiple diagnoses of cancer during this last 2 years as well. And the skills and tools, even from the retreat, has actually enabled me to keep mentally strong and actually get through it. I'm in remission at the moment. And again, it's just what I've learned and what I've been able to apply has actually been really, empowering to continue.
I wanted to ask you just about that. Like when you started the story, you just sort of glossed over it and said, I've had a few health issues and I've been made aware that you've suffered from depression. You'd had a very difficult breakup and you'd been diagnosed with cancer, which is, not the best trifecta to have.
No,
like,
definitely.
it's just like, bang, there's another layer of crap that you've got to deal with. And I just want you to, if you can, help us understand what happened in your mind to go and even look at the website, let alone take the first step, let alone get in a car with strangers to drive however many hours to go to a retreat. We'll talk about that, but none of that would have happened if you didn't make that first little micro decision to reach out for help, because I find that if somebody just had one of those things, if they had a major relationship breakup, they just tend to go into their cave and they won't ask for help. And even if people offer help, they'll reject it. If you've got a bad health diagnosis, it can just create that much pressure and stress that you reject help. And people that suffer from depression, they're almost impossible to reach and open up to accept help. You had all three. Yep. Help us understand what was the trigger, what was the thought, what was the thing that sort of got its foot in that tiny little gap in the door and got you to open up and even look for a solution?
Yeah, good question. The reality is, I remember standing in front of the mirror, just asking myself, "Who am I, and what do I want to do? Where do I want to go?" And I couldn't answer it. Now, I've always been strong-minded. I've always been a bit of a leader, a strong family man. Someone who's been there for my family through thick and thin. I grew up with a lot of family issues as well. In terms of domestic violence, childhood trauma, all that sort of stuff. And at the time, I actually was having a conversation with my mum, and I had a breakdown to her and said, exactly that. I just don't know where I am, what I want to do. I've got no purpose. And I said to her, I don't know who I am anymore. And she said to me, I actually don't know who you are anymore, son. And that was the kick in the guts that I needed to go, whoa, okay. Because for so long, I've always been the strong one. I've always been the one that, had the answers or the solutions for my family. I was the one that they came to with the problems to help. But at that point in time, to hear that, from someone that you have fought for, have stood by, have stuck up for, and worked hard for, especially, your own mum, to say exactly those words, that was enough for me to go, you know what, I already know I'm feeling this way, but to hear those words from someone that you love and respect, that was enough for me to go, you know what, I need to do something about this, because if I don't, I'm in a world of pain. I'm in a dark hole.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're always trying to bring you information that's going to make your life as a builder much easier. So give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. Not that you weren't already. It would get worse. Tell me about, because I hear this a lot. I hear this like in Builder's Business Black Belt. We've got an amazing crew in the community, builders, experienced builders, And one of the things that they continually bring up is not suffering by themselves. Like the best thing is to find out that other people have, the same issues that they do. Tell me about that and how important it is to be able to be part of a community that really understands what you're going through, because they are either going through or have gone through it themselves.
Yeah, it's it's quite eye opening. Like I said, when I headed up to the retreat, uh, in my head, I was the only one going through it. I was the one that could only have these problems. I was the only one that felt like this. Um, but when you do start to connect with like-minded people, even without story sharing, you can see it in their faces. You can see it in their, ability to just be present. Um, and just some of the stuff that we work through at the retreat without story sharing, some of the questions, because what you find when you've got a group of men in a room, whether it's at a local pub, whether it's at a community hall, whether it's part of a sports team, we tend to talk, and we tend to kind of brush it off or have a bit of a joke about it, and don't take it too serious. But when you're in somewhere like the retreat, where you're there for a purpose, you're there for a reason, you want to gain something. I found that, yeah, you are quite similar in a lot of ways. Yes, your story is different, but in terms of how you feel and what you're going through and all of the sort of head demons and stuff that you feel and experience, it's quite similar. Um, Now, a wise lady once told me that suffering is a choice, and that wise lady was exactly Geraldine. I remember the first time that she told me, I laughed it off, and I said, "How would you know? You don't know why I'm suffering. You don't know how I'm suffering, and how can you say that?" But as I continued to do the work, it made more sense, because at the end of the day, it is suffering is a choice. You are in control of your life, and you get to make that decision on, do I want to or do I not want to? And if I don't want to, what am I going to do about it? And when you are kind of down and out, yes, those kind of decisions will be harder to make. But the reality is there is help available. There are people out there that are going through the same, if not worse. And they are there to help and encourage and support. Outside of the retreat and the facilitators and Geraldine and all of the help, linking up with some of the guys that were up there and just being able to chat to them on the phone or catch up in person, continue to build relationships. So it's not only did I go up there to work on myself, but I've built new friendships, I've built new mates, I've encouraged and supported them, and they've done that to me. So it's it's crazy how it starts off. It's big daunting adventure, but by the end of it, like I said, I signed up, went straight back to the second retreat, and I'm about to do the third. And one of the biggest things, I guess, what people noticed with me when I did come back is a different person straight away, even just in the way that I looked. I was excited. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to tell people what I learned. I wanted to tell people how I felt, because I was shocked in myself on how is it that after 3 days I can transform from where I was to where I am now. Um, and I remember reaching out to a few of my close friends who were going through a few of the same issues, and they wanted to, know a bit more about it. Now, obviously, you learn a lot of information over the 3 days, so it's quite hard to unpack that over a cold beer or a phone call. Um, but it was just the small stuff in terms of what you got, what you took away from it and how it made you feel. And I guess I was pretty much a bit of an ambassador of that, because I came back and people seen that. And the respect that I've got in my peers, in my work colleagues, in my friendships, sports teams, family, people seen a change, and that started conversation. So it was easy to talk about, what I learned and what I achieved based off what people seen in terms of my personality and who I became again. Uh, I actually, on the second retreat, went up with one of my best mates that I've been friends with for over 28 years. And again, I said to him, I said, I need you to do this for yourself, though. Don't do this because I'm going. Don't do this for any other reason. You've got to go in there and you've got to be by yourself, and you need to take out as much as you can. And that changed his life. Not only did he get to do it for himself, but there was things that we had gone through as kids together, as teenagers together, as men together, that we were able to work on together throughout the retreat. So not only did it make our friendship stronger, but we're now day to day able to lean on each other and support one another through the tough times. Um, and again, he wouldn't have been able to be put in that situation or make those decisions had he have not seen the impacts and I guess the success on what I achieved. Um, I remember the second retreat that when I was up there, I spoke to a few of the guys before the first day started, and said, "This is my second time around." They're like, "Are you crazy? Like, why would you come back?" I said, "By the end of the weekend, ask me the same question, and I guarantee you'll answer it." And that was the thing. By the end of the weekend, the general consensus is, I wish this went longer. I'm so relaxed. I'm head deep in learning about myself again, and I'm believing in myself again, and the tools and the skills and I guess the confidence that you find within yourself again to be able to take back to your day to day life, whether it's relationships, whether it's health, whether it's work, all sorts of aspects of life. Um, that's what you benefit from going away and working on yourself. I mean, there's so much stuff that you kind of, I guess, as guys, you kind of disregard. We're I guess the perception is we're big, strong, people that yes, we've got a heart, but that's designed to be strong 24/7. I mean, the reality is well, we're human. We make mistakes. We've got feelings and we've got emotions. There's 8 men a day that die from suicide. And that's a scary number because that's someone's mate, that's someone's dad, that's someone's brother, that's someone's son. The list goes on. And I was going to be one of those numbers at some point. And I guess with the skills and the tools and I guess the help from the Alchemy of Men, I'm now not one of those numbers. And I'm now the opposite. I'm encouraging and supporting people who are at that first stage now to reach out, to make the leap, not to be
So
afraid.
with two questions that come out of that. The first is being part of a community we've talked about, but having your commitment to contribute, and it's something that I'm really strong on with our group these days is show up to the group with the number one objective to contribute. And you've gone up to the first retreat and it's had an impact on you, but obviously you're going back to the second and third retreats for your own benefit. But it seems to me that you're showing up to support others because you've seen the value of the support that you got for yourself. How important is it to continue to go back to these environments with a focus to contribute? How important is that?
100%. Like, one of the biggest things about me is that I'm a man of my word. I wouldn't do something or ask something of somebody else unless I was prepared to do it myself. And that's exactly what I did. I went up there for myself, and I've come back and I've shared my story and what I went through. But I've also backed it up again by going and doing it again. And the reality is that the second time I went back, I was in a different frame of mind. So I wasn't fully healed. I'm still not fully healed. But being able to see it from a different perspective and a different frame of mind, I actually took a lot more out of the second retreat than I did the first because I was broken on the first one. I was shut off. I was closed. But the second time round, learning similar stuff with a different frame of mind enabled me to benefit a hell of a lot more. And the ongoing support from there, and I guess the sense of empowerment and who I am as a person, is what I now pass on to everybody else. So I I'm a big supporter of the Alchemy of Men. I'd wish I can do more. I'm a huge believer of what they've been able to achieve, obviously with myself, but in previous retreats and like-minded men. Um, Geraldine and her story and the reason why she has started this is hits home. We're all dads, we're all family men, we're all partners, we're all work colleagues, and at the end of the day, it's about banding together. There's a lot of social media and a lot of noise out there to support women, but there's very little in terms of men and where men can go and what men can do. A lot of men struggle that way because they don't see the help, they don't hear the help. Whereas for me, it's about speaking what I've learned, speaking what I've achieved, and I guess the people that are listening to that respect me because they know that I wouldn't have put this forward if I didn't think it was going to benefit anybody else. And I guess that's me sticking by my word. I've gone and done it. I've done it twice. I'm about to do it again, and I'll continue to do it. One of the biggest things that I've taken away was I started this journey because I was a broken man, but I'm continuing this journey now because I want to be invested in helping others as well. I want to work with the likes of Geraldine and the rest of the facilitators and the Alchemy of Men to share their name, to share their logo, to share what they're about. Get it out there because the more conversations we have about stuff like this, the better, and the more men are going to be able to reach out and see that there is help available, see that they're not alone, see that it is okay to speak. It is okay to show emotion. And most of all, there's stickers around that it is okay not to be okay. That saying is so true. It doesn't make you weak because you're upset. It doesn't make you weak because you've made mistakes. We're human. Everyone is born to make mistakes. It's how you learn from them is what makes you a better person.
Yeah. A number of times you've mentioned the different tools that they've given you at the retreat, and Geraldine and the facilitators. What's one that comes to mind that is sort of worth mentioning in our conversation that people, like, it might grab people's attention, it might make sense to them, it might cause them to go, that resonates with me, I'll jump on the website and have a look. What's one tool what's the first thing that comes to your mind when we start talking about tools that you've been given through the Alchemy of Men and the retreat?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing to share would be just the acceptance that, it's okay. It's okay what you're feeling, and then there is a way out. There is help. There are people out there that care, that want to support and encourage you to, work through what's going on. In terms of tools, I guess it's more about being humble with yourself and understanding who you are as a person, and I guess reconnecting with yourself. That would probably be the biggest tool, is that once you reconnect with yourself and you start to, I guess, love yourself a bit more and, figure out who you are as a person and where you want to be, what you want to do, and kind of that purpose in life, that's a big tool in itself. And that comes from validation and, self-affirmation, telling yourself that, you are enough, that you are good enough, that you are loved, that you are supported. One of the biggest things that I remember, my statement that I wrote down on a piece of paper when I got to the retreat was, nothing I ever do is good enough or appreciated. The reality is that there's stuff that you do on a day-to-day that is good enough and that is appreciated. And that is by yourself and by people. What I soon discovered was that was something that I believed in myself. But the reality is there's still people out there that cared, that supported, that thought that you were enough. But in order for you to be able to accept that, you need to do it within. So that would probably be the biggest tool, is that the retreat helps you reconnect with yourself. And from there, everything else becomes easier.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Great stuff. Troy, I want to thank you for putting the time aside to come onto the podcast. Geraldine's been on the podcast. I think if you go to the Alchemy of Men website, there is her episode of the ToolShed Podcast is on the front page. I just noticed there's a big picture of my melon on there. I didn't know that was there, but that's there. We had a great conversation, and we heard her story. We've heard your story. You're an inspiration. Everything that you've said is so true. I hope people listen to your message. I hope people reach out for help. I hope, and if they can gain benefit by jumping on the website, joining the Alchemy of Men in their retreats. I'm sure that there's also conversations outside of that. I mean, you drove so many hours in a car with some strangers who become mates by the time you got there. I'm sure that doesn't end after the retreat. I'm sure you stay in contact, and there's conversations and get-togethers,
Yep.
on the phone or Zoom or whatever. What happens after that initial get-together? Tell me about the connections that you've created through the people that you've met through the retreats.
Yeah, definitely. So just quickly, the next retreat is the 18th to the 20th of October. So all the details are on the website. But in terms of what happens after the retreat, we all link up on a what's next app. And we continue communications, encouragement. But what you generally find is that, we all share numbers. Social media is a great platform. And you got guys that are coming, from overseas. You got guys that are coming from around Australia. So, like you say, we all do travel far and wide for this, and we do stay in contact, whether it's through phone calls, through the WhatsApp conversations, but it's also the one-on-one follow-ups that we get with Geraldine and the rest of facilitators.
It's a hard word to say 10 times
Yeah.
really fast.
It is. They take it upon themselves to make sure that everybody that is at the retreat is followed up with how are we doing,
Nice.
and all that sort of stuff. And like I said, by the end of the weekend, we all have a bit of a personal interest in each other to make sure that each other's doing okay and to check in. So it's about checking in with your mates and, seeing if they're okay. One big, I guess, thing I probably want to reiterate as well is one of the things I actually was hesitant to, go to the retreat was the cost.
Mm.
Now, someone said to me once, "What's the cost worth of your life and self-care?" There is no figure. At the end of the day, no amount of money can make someone happy, and the money spent on your health and well-being will be the best money spent for your future. And although times are tough and prices of everything have gone up, and I know in my position, it was like, oh yeah, but my family need this, or I could do this, but I am so grateful that I was able to take the leap and actually be a bit selfish and put that money towards my own self-care, because without that, I wouldn't have been here where I am now. And the money that I am now able to make and to, continue to make, for a small sacrifice goes a hell of a lot way.
Yeah. You've got to look after the goose that lays the golden egg, like they say on the airplanes. Always put your oxygen mask on first before you help anybody else. That's a great metaphor to take into life. We all want to do things for our family and our friends and our colleagues and look after them and all that sort of stuff. But unless and until we start to take care of ourselves, we're not really that much use for anybody else. So very wise words, Troy. Thank you very much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. You're an inspiration, doing great work. So glad to have met you and had a conversation with you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and allow me to share my story. It's the journey's just begun, and hopefully I can be an inspiration to other men out there who are going through tough times. I guess I'll finish with there are people out there who will help, and there is help available. It isn't weak to speak, and it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah. Wonderful, mate. You already are an inspiration. You don't have to become one. Thank you very much. So, folks, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation, a profound conversation, a very, very common story, although, when we unpack Troy's story, he did have that incredible trifecta, but still was able to reach out and take some simple steps forward to begin to look after himself. And whilst we all should be looking after each other, at the end of the day, we need to look after ourselves. And if there is something that is pressing on you in your life and you're not enjoying it and you want some help, there are plenty of places to reach out, and one of them is the Alchemy of Men. Go to the site. You'll be able to check out, I think it was episode 109 where I spoke with Geraldine herself. You'll be able to watch that episode, reach out, have a conversation with them, maybe jump in and join the retreat coming up in October. And obviously Troy will be there. You'll be able to go and meet him, give him a hug and pick his brain I guess, add an extra really valuable person to your circle of friends and supporters. So it's a great thing. Really want to thank Troy for telling his story and being so vulnerable. It was a great story. So we will be back with another episode of the Tool Shed before you know it. I'm Mick Hawes from Builders Business Black Belt. That is all. I'm out. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Tool Shed. If this podcast struck a chord with you, make sure you spread the word by sharing it with your mates in the building industry. We love your help to make the building industry better for everyone involved.